This series is born out of my love for poetry. So poetry has been very essential part of me, and I guess many of us, as it is introduced to us in schools essentially, and maybe to others through like other mediums as well, I hope. But for me, while growing up in school especially, poetry wasn't something I really enjoyed reading all the time. Yes, I loved reading poetry, and I was like very enthusiastic about which poem are we going to read today or this and that. But along with that, there was also the fear that whether am I going to make pace with what teacher is going to teach me, or whether am I going to even get the whole meaning that I'm supposed to get. I thought like there is the meaning that I'm supposed to understand about the poem. And I actually discovered this whole joy of poetry reading quite late in my life. Yes, it is very true that poetry is actually introduced to many of us from the very early childhood days, probably in our schools, I guess, most of the times, or our homes, I guess. So, yeah, so these are the little poetry books. You can see these are very small, and I use it actually. The whole experience of redefining my poetry experience started when I enrolled in MA course, and I made it sure that while commuting to my campus, it used to take actually 9 to 10 minutes by metro to commute to my campus, from my PG to my campus. So I made it a point that I'm going to read these any poem, any, not specifically like I have to read one specific poem that I'm going to get or something, but any poem for that matter, whatever I enjoy, and preferably a short poem, that because it's easy to begin with. If it's long poem, I'm also confused about reading that. So it happened, and it started with the whole thing that read it again and again until the poem speaks to you. And if it's for you, it does speaks to you. And it was not a thing that if I don't like that I have to stick with it in the very first reading or in the very first stanza. If it doesn't connect with me, I'll go to the other poem. But there was something that would catch my attention in that poem, and I'll continue with it. So gradually it took me a year and a half to actually develop, not only develop my interest, but I started actually enjoying the very process. And even to my surprise, I also started writing a few lines that I happen to call poetry. And yes, we can call it poetry if you want to, maybe not, depends. But it wasn't always like this. While growing up, yes, I did enjoy reading much of it, but many a times I used to be scared about, in school especially, we are very scared about the meaning that we are going to get from the poetry, or the supposed meaning that our teachers are supposed to teach us, and we are supposed to make our understanding with that only. We are not allowed to rediscover or to actually just enjoy the whole process and to just bridge a very beautiful relationship with poetry, which springs from the time and space we share with it, by the very sheer time and space we share with anything, I guess. We happen to understand it and enjoy it if it's poetry or something. Specifically, of course, if it's poetry or something. So, yeah. it was like from not enjoying it or being it a burden to understand a specific meaning that is being conveyed in a poem that you're reading, to a journey where you actually want to do it. But yes, in between, there is a discipline that one has to maintain. That was that I actually placed all these three, and of course, there were some like these paper like printouts I had in my different bags that I used to carry to my college, that I don't happen to make any excuse, okay, I'm not carrying it today, so I just don't read it and something. No, I made it sure that I put it in every bag, in some other bag, or on some other day I happen to carry, and I just read it. Yes, many a times I just used to, not many a times, but a few times I used to be so taken by the beautiful and pretty girls around me in the metro if I'm traveling in the, yes, most of the time that I was traveling in the first, of course I had to, in the first school that was women's, specifically women's coach. So the very energy and the enthusiasm and the very, confidence of youth that is there. I used to be so taken away by everything, that very energy and the pretty girls and how they're dressing, what's the fashion going, and the very youth of, and the very confidence of the youth at that time. So I used to just sit and look around, okay, what's going, and I used to be so taken away by it. On other days, and that used to be the most of the days, I used to devote my time to poetry reading only. Now coming to the name of the channel, that is the Little Leafy. And why this name? This name in itself signifies that it's about a little leafy. I happen to love leaves a lot, and as leaves come in different shapes, sizes, colors, and I also happen to just form this analogy that as leaves also in a way just show us a very essential message of life itself, that's like they grow on their own, and then there is this time of fall, and they just go down back to the earth and nourishes it, and in a way supports life again. So there is a whole cycle. Then it grows and it matures, it lives, and it falls back to the earth. It nourishes the earth again for more life, of course. This whole love actually also is linked to a one particular incident. When I was just walking down through my campus, that was South Campus in New Delhi. It's actually located on the Aravali range. When the Aravali range is coming actually on the ground level, there it's located, and so it just happened to be so lush green and also somewhat rich in flora and fauna. So I was just walking down through my college campus lane, and I just happened to notice one very beautiful moment. That was a very little yellow neem leaf was spinning down. It was just, it didn't actually, it was in the midair and it was just spinning. I just happened to look at it and I was so enchanted by it the very moment that I happened to be just, it was a moment of pause. when I was just in that moment. That's it. And I realized that how I was so much taken by my own thoughts and vagaries of life, but that very moment was so important that helped me actually in unselfing. Then and there, not then and there, it was a very slow process after that, when I also intentionally tried that I'll be very thoughtful about the things and very thoughtful about my surroundings, especially when I am in nature. I should make sure that I am actually paying attention to the leaves, trees, and sky. At least I'm just not so taken by everything, my own life, problems and everything. So yeah, that was very unselfing moment, and I've always loved noticing leaves of different types, and I just so taken by their beauty. So the word leafy comes from there. Then why the little? So here it comes from my love for a book, that is The Little Prince. So I've read it 3 times, and it's my actually yearly ritual to read it. I just read it once in a year, and preferably at the same period which is somewhat related to my first time reading to it. So yeah, the whole name of the channel, The Little Leafy, comes from things I love. That's it. I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you.